In this heartfelt and vulnerable episode, we step away from the usual business strategies and life lessons to share news that's reshaped our perspective. Brooke's cancer diagnosis. She opens up about the moment she found out, what treatment looks like, and how this journey is already transforming the way that she sees her work, her relationships, and her faith. Through the uncertainty, she's discovering unexpected lessons and unmistakable glimpses of God.
Hey, lady bosses, are you working even after putting the kids to bed but still not getting results?
Are you tired of spending money on ads that aren't getting engagement?
Do you feel burdened that you aren't fulfilling your purpose in life because you are so consumed with work?
I'm your host, Brooke Bolts. I'm an attorney and founder of Bolts Legal. I started my business and in 1 year was bringing in 7 figures and am now bringing in multi-7 figures.
And I'm your co-host, Rachel Bolts, owner of Bolts Media. I've helped many businesses build their online presence and increase their revenue through digital marketing.
Want to hear how we did it?
We are here to help you achieve your goals personally, professionally, and spiritually.
So kick off your high heels, sit back, and let's ignite that passion.
We're Miss Biz, where we're putting the miss in biz.
Let's get biz done. I don't know if this podcast episode will ever actually get aired because I have been so torn about what to share and what not to share with the cancer journey that I've been undergoing. And I don't know when I'm going to get to a place that I'm comfortable to share this story publicly. But I did want to at least record it today so that we could memorialize the story and have it for future reference if I get to that place that I'm comfortable to share it.
Well, it definitely takes a lot of courage just to even be able to talk about it, let alone go this far to even document it and have it recorded. So I give you a lot of credit and a lot of admiration for that.
Thank you. And if you haven't before watched a YouTube version of our episode and you want to see what I look like currently, you can check it out on YouTube. Part of the reason why this particular cancer diagnosis and treatment has been so challenging is because it's on my face and head. And so right now, as I sit here today, I have what's called a wound vac that is covering my wound on the right side of my forehead. And it's a large area of a wound, but then the wound vac has a tube that comes out of it that goes to a machine. And so it's just very visible. It also, the whole right side of my face is deformed because of the different surgeries that I've had. And so we'll talk more about that as we tell the story, but just wanted to encourage you to check out the YouTube if you haven't done it before, because you'll get a little better idea of what this process has been like for me when you can see visually what I look like.
And if you're interested in viewing it on YouTube, our handle is at Miss Biz Podcast. And I want to assure you, Brooke still looks really cute. She's got part of her head shaved, and she actually looks like a pretty hot rocker chick right now. So even though
definitely not true, but I do have shaved head in parts. And thank you for thinking that it looks cute. But if you're not my sister-in-law, you probably would not agree.
So, Brooke, let's start at the very beginning. At what point in time did you realize that maybe something was a little off or that you were having different symptoms and you needed to go seek help?
So I am a klutz and I bump my head all the time, especially on the right side of my head. So over the years, I had developed bumps on the side of my head that just never went away. And I had gone to see a dermatologist about that years and years ago. And they had told me it's just scar tissue. For whatever reason, that part of your head, if you bump it on a car door or whatever, it develops scar tissue, and the scar tissue never goes away. So you just have these kind of lumps on the side of your head. And so I never really thought much of it again. And so when this particular spot came up, I believed it was scar tissue as well, and it actually was scar tissue. The cancer developed inside of my scar tissue, and that's a lesson that I learned and that our listeners can learn as well, is that cancer likes scar tissue. It likes areas that are already weakened in the body. And so this particular type of cancer developed a tumor within that scar tissue. And so I had this bump on my head for a good while, a few years. And I didn't do anything about it initially, again, because it was just scar tissue. And then one day I started to recognize that this one particular area was throbbing. And that was unique and not something that had happened before with my other scars. And so I went to see the dermatologist again, and they said, oh, a cyst has developed on top of the scar tissue. And so they scheduled me for cyst removal. No big deal. And so that's what we did. We scheduled the cyst removal. When I went to have the cyst removed, the dermatologist, I think, knew right away that it wasn't a cyst, because he said things to me like, there's some characteristics that I'm seeing that look a little different than a cyst. But that's as much as he said. He didn't say anything more than that. And so I just didn't worry about it and just waited for the pathology results. And about 10 days later, he called me at 7 o'clock at night. And as soon as I saw the phone ring that late, I knew that it was something concerning. And that's when he told me of the diagnosis. And the type of cancer I have, it's a long name that is, I've learned the name of it now. It's dermatofibrosis sarcoma protuberans. And kind of the key word in that is the word sarcoma, which is the type of cancer it is, which is very rare. Sarcomas are the most, well, I won't say the most, they are a rare type of cancer, maybe the most, can't say that for sure, but this particular DFSP is the abbreviation, is so rare that it's like 1 in millions of people who get this particular type of tumor. So that presented its own challenges because the doctors have a lot of unanswered questions about it because it's not something they see every day.
So in order for this cancer to exist, what different factors or elements have to be present?
I think this type of a tumor always develops inside of scar tissue. So I think you have to have scar tissue of some sort. Aside from that, who knows why it develops? Who knows why a lot of cancers develop? I mean, when it comes to things like lung cancer, you can know there's usually a correlation between smoking and lung cancer. But something like this, it's not. It is classified as a skin cancer, but it is not sun-related, it's not hereditary, it's just such a freak occurrence that, and it's so rare that it's really hard for them to know even what triggers it. Basically what happens, as I understand it, is when you have that scar tissue and your skin is rebuilding, there is a mutation of a gene. One gene mutates, and then that gene multiplies and just multiplies and multiplies like rapidly. And that's what creates the tumor, and it just continues to grow.
That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So after you received the notification from the doctor, how did you then proceed to tell your family about it? Because I can't imagine how difficult that would be, not only having to bear the weight of this news, but then having to convey to the people who love you and need you that that was actually occurring.
Yeah, so when I got the calls around 7 o'clock at night, I was home alone with my 5-year-old, and he obviously doesn't understand this type of thing. And so my husband had taken my daughters to basketball. He was picking them up from basketball practice. So I started texting him because he should have been home already at that point, and he wasn't responding. And apparently they took a detour to get food or whatever, and so they were taking a long time. And then finally, when they came in the house, I mean, it was just, I'm not someone who can easily hide something like that, or I just told them the second they walked in the door, because I just had been waiting already for them to get home, and I don't know what the right way is, but I just told them right away. And it was interesting to see how each of them reacted differently. My husband is always very strong and doesn't really show a lot of emotion. What he does is goes into research mode. And so he, that night, was up half the night just researching this type of tumor and what causes it and what you can do to fix it and what the chances are, and like just all the things. He just went into research mode to try to come up with a plan on how to help. And then my oldest daughter didn't shed a tear. She's just really kind of strong as well in the sense that she doesn't show her emotions outwardly a lot of times. And but then my middle daughter became very emotional and tearful, and so she was the one who kind of showed her emotions the most in that moment. And then I contacted my sister and my parents and let them know that night. And I think that's all I told the first night. And that's something else that has been a progression, is who to tell and when. Figuring that out has been trial and error. I don't know that I've done it correctly. I don't know if there is a way to do it correctly, but just over the course of time, people have been learning of it from one way or another, little by little.
Well, I think, too, when you own a business, it can be kind of challenging in that regard, because at that point in time, there were a lot of unknowns. You didn't really know like how serious it was going to be or what treatment was going to look like. So you had a lot on your heart weighing very heavily on what is the right thing to do and who are the right people to tell.
I would say that that is definitely a unique aspect of my condition compared to others who maybe are not business owners, that the impact it has on your business is something you have to really consider differently than you do if you are, or during the years that I was an employee. If I was still an employee, I could just take FMLA time off and, that's the end of it. But as a business owner, I have to think about if the people who refer me business suddenly believe that I'm not able to handle their case with to the best of my ability, then that could devastate the business if they stop referring business for that reason. And some people even think that they're helping you out. They have the perspective of, well, I don't want to put anything burdensome on her, so I'm going to let her just take this time to heal and get better. In the meantime, that stress of the lower business revenue and the lower case count could destroy the business, multiplying the stress on me times 100. So people don't always recognize, and I put myself in the shoes of someone who would be a referrer, and I couldn't find myself feeling confident that I would just continue to refer cases if I knew someone was going through something like this. I just don't think I would be comfortable to do it. I would want to have all hands on deck of the most qualified people, and I don't think I would refer cases. And so I have not told a lot of people who refer me cases to this day. That's been an emotional and ethical struggle in my mind. I have not lied about it. I have not, but I just have continued to, when they call, I pick up the phone. I answer those questions. When they send me a text, I respond to that text. I do not let a minute go by that would let them question that something was off with me, or that I wasn't fully available and capable to help them. But that has been a struggle, and I hope to be able to share with those people soon what's been going on, because I do now have a light at the end of the tunnel after several weeks of surgeries. But so far, I have not shared it with a lot of people in my business life.
Well, I think that that's a legitimate concern. And I think a lot of people, if they were to put themselves in your shoes, they could relate and understand. So I wouldn't beat myself up entirely if I were you. I mean, everybody is different, and what is a good time for somebody else may not be the best time for you. So right now, you just really have to press into your faith and go where God tells you to go and do what God tells you to do. He'll tell you when the right time is. And I think it's also important too, if they were to somehow discover that this had been going on, that you're not a one-man show. I mean, you have a full team that are filing the motions. You have attorney that works part-time to cover cases. So, and that happened long before this incident even occurred. So you are fully staffed and fully capable of taking on any challenges.
Thank you. And part of the outline of things I prepared for this episode is the things that I have learned I've had an even greater gratefulness for, and one of them is the team. The team and the staff that we have here. I mean, we have really taken this on without missing a beat. Our clients have not had any indication that there's any problem with the firm, and there's not. There is no problem with the firm. Everything is functioning perfectly. Every case is attended to. We've had to cancel almost nothing. I mean, I've had to cancel in-person lunches and things like that, because if you look at me, I look terrible. I cannot go have a lunch with someone the way I look. It cannot happen. So I can't do those networking things that I was once doing. I can't. I had to take a medical leave of absence from my BNI chapter. I'm the president of the chapter, and so I lead the meeting. I can't lead the meeting looking like I look. So there's things like that I've had to adjust. But when it comes to the handling of the caseload, almost nothing has had to be canceled. And so the team has just really stepped up to the plate, and things are working as well as they always have. But perception is reality. And so if people perceive that you might not be available or accessible, they still can pull back, and that would just devastate my business if that happened.
Well, you are definitely more accessible now than compared to most attorneys that I know that go on vacations like quite often and really don't respond to emails, text messages, or anything when they're on vacations. I mean, you're still responding to questions and requests like just right after biopsies, you know? Yeah,
I've had to monitor those things. But again, we put a system in place so that I don't have to monitor everything, only the things that are really require my attention. And so just it's really a testament to having built a solid team leading up to this that has minimized the impact that this has had so far on my business. And so for business owners, even if you're not dealing with something like this, chances are in your life, you're going to have some challenge outside of your control. Maybe not with your personal health, but maybe with a spouse or a parent or something like that, that's going to take you away from being able to be fully enveloped in the business all day, every day. And so that is why setting up your team in advance with high quality people who you can trust, who know their jobs well, and treating them as well as you possibly can so that you retain them. That is why it is so important all the time, but especially in a time like this.
Absolutely, because they can help keep things going when you might not normally have, the hours that you would usually have because you're taking care of those personal aspects of your life.
Do you love the Miss Biz podcast?
Because we love you.
Here's 3 things you can do to show your support.
1, write us a review. Apple, Spotify, and Google My Business are the best platforms to write a review.
2, follow us on social media. Our handle is @MissBizPodcast.
3, join our Facebook group, Miss Biz Nation, for exclusive content and behind-the-scenes footage. Also, ask questions related to your business and discuss topics from our episodes. So, we talked about notifying the family. How long in between the time that you received the notification from the dermatologist at night up until you had your first procedure?
I think it was a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks from if I'm remembering correctly, I think my initial biopsy was like April 5th, 2025, and my, what they call Mohs surgery was April 20, actually, I think it was April 5th. I could be off on that. But my Mohs surgery for sure was April 28th, 2025. And so a Mohs surgery, it's a pretty common surgery that people have for skin cancer. Like, for example, your dad he's an AC repair person and technician. And so he's fair-skinned and he's been outside doing AC work all his life. And so he gets skin cancers every other week, it seems like.
It's quite often.
Yeah, so he's probably had, how many skin cancer surgeries on his body?
Oh, man. The whole body total, probably around 50 or so, between just all the little spots being cut off and frozen off. It's been a lot.
Right. So that's kind of been my experience relating to skin cancer through what he's gone through. And then I have my aunt, Treva, also had a melanoma on her arm that was surgically removed. So she's got a good sized scar on her forearm. And so that's kind of been my view of skin cancer up to that point, is they cut it out and you're good to go. And so that was what I was expecting when they told me to come in for the Mohs surgery. And the Mohs surgery, you probably heard of it because it is so common in removing skin cancers for melanoma and basal cell, which are the really common kind. The kind I have, again, is very rare. So what's cool about the Mohs surgery, and this is interesting because the first thing they said to me when I came into the patient room on the day of the Mohs surgery was, today you're going to leave cancer free. That's what they said to me. And I immediately, like, something in my spirit just was like, knew that they were being overly optimistic.
Yeah.
And I even thought in my head, you really, as a lawyer who never gives promises to anyone for anything, because we can never promise an outcome of a case, we can never promise we're going to win. And when they said that to me, I'm like, you guys shouldn't be telling people that because you can't guarantee that. And
You never promised results.
yeah.
Ever.
So I'm thinking this Mohs surgery is, kind of like what I've seen on my aunt's forearm and what your dad has gone through, and it was the worst thing I've ever been through in my life. It was so much more than that. And basically what they do is they do rounds of cutting. So they come in round one, they cut out a small area, and they look at it right then and there under the microscope to see if the cancer cells are there. And that's one of the things about this type of a tumor, is that the tumor itself was already removed during the biopsy, but it has these like arms or tentacles that reach out from it. And so what they're trying to do in the Mohs is to find how far these tentacles are reaching and cut those out, but they're not visible. They're microscopic. So as they're cutting, they're just blindly cutting on your face. And they numb you using the needles, which if you've ever had numbing needles, especially on your face, that is really painful. So they had to do, 10 or more injections of the numbing on the first round to numb the area. And then they start with the cutting. And you can't feel the cutting, but you can hear it. The scissors, each time the scissors snip, you hear it. So round one, I'm good, like emotionally. They cut it out. My mom is there with me. My husband's there also, but he's afraid of blood, so he's out in the waiting room. He's out in the waiting room. My mom's there in the patient room with me. And so round one, and then they send us to the waiting room to wait. So we wait, close to an hour. They call us back and they say, we didn't get it all. We can see the cancer's still there on the microscope. We're going to have to go for round two. So round two is where I kind of break down emotionally and just like start crying, because that's when I feel that and hear the pressure and hear the sound of the scissors cutting further across my forehead. Before that, it was kind of localized more to a smaller area, just kind of on the far right of my forehead. But in round two, I just feel and hear cuts going like across my forehead, and I'm just envisioning this huge wound on my head. And so I just start crying. But, quietly, not like loudly or anything like that. And the surgeon was really not very comforting. She didn't talk much. She just said, all right, we're going to go look at this under the microscope and we'll be back. But my mom was there. She was very comforting. And so we waited after round two. Round two was a lot bigger of a wound than round one. I could just feel it and hear it. And so we go back out to the waiting room. We're waiting another hour or so. They call me back for round three and say, we didn't get it all. And at this point, I'm like, it's just a lot. Because the other thing is, the numbing didn't last for me longer than an hour. And so while I'm sitting in the waiting room, the numbing starts wearing off. And so I'm starting to feel the pain of this open wound on my forehead. And so each time they do a round, they have to re-inject another dozen needles or so. And that is just so painful. And so, I ended up going through 4 rounds of Mohs before they finally stopped. And each time they would have to re-inject, like just dozens of needles throughout the day. And during round 3 is when the surgeon says to me, well, we've now hit the bone, and that's as deep as I can go. as a dermatologist. And so I'm probably going to have to refer you to a head and neck surgeon. And so I said, when you say bone, are you referring to my skull? And she said, yes. And so I said, okay, well, if you've gone as deep as you can go, does that mean we're done? Like after you get the results, regardless of what they show, you've gone as deep as you can go. So can I leave after this? And she was like, well, no, because it could still be wider. I can't go any deeper, but I could go wider. So I've got to see what the results show. So I wait. This time it's not as long because the patients, they do all their most surgeries on one day. So they're clearing out. They're getting cleared and they're going home. And I'm still there at this point. We're into the afternoon. And so it's quicker in between rounds. So round 3, they come back and said, we didn't get it all. We've got to go for round 4. And that was horribly traumatic again, because again, I'm awake and I'm listening to the cutting. I mean, hundreds of cuts. Like if you can just imagine, maybe thousands worth of cuts you're hearing just going on your face. And now in round 4, not only am I hearing the cuts, but she's got some type of metal tool. She's scraping on my skull. And so I'm hearing and feeling the pressure of just this scraping on the bone of my skull. And I asked her, I said, that scraping, is that my skull? And she goes, yes. I wish there was a way you didn't have to hear this, but I need to get the cells off your skull so I can look at them under the microscope. So she goes out round 4, comes back and says, we still haven't gotten it all, but I, at this point, don't feel like I should put you through anything more today. And we're past the place that we could reconstruct your forehead here anyways. And so we're going to send you to a head and neck surgeon who can see you tomorrow morning. And so the plan had been, they do the Mohs, they get what they call clear margins. And once you're clear, cancer-free, then they send in the plastic surgeon who sews you up. So I kept expecting like that was going to be how the day ended at some point, was plastic surgeon was going to close me up. Well, after round 4, she says, your wound is too big. There's no way, you're going to have a skin graft to close this wound. So there's no way our surgeon here, plastic surgeon here, could ever do that. So we're going to put a bandage over top of this wound, which at that point was 5 centimeters in diameter, which is huge. It looks like a baseball. And we're going to put this bandage on you, which I have pictures, and it just covered like half of my head. We're going to bandage you up and send you to the head and neck surgeon tomorrow morning. So I'm like, this is just all new information that I didn't expect. Like I thought I was going to leave there stitched up, looking normal, not with a baseball-sized hole in my head. So I'm asking questions like, well, is the head and neck surgeon going to be able to do this surgery tomorrow so that I don't have to walk around town with a wound in my head? And they were like, well, we can't say for sure, but we think so, yes, because they're tied to the hospital. They're like with the hospital, so we think they should be able to get you in. Meanwhile, it's today, May 19th.
Yes.
And I still have a open wound on my head. So that was 22 days ago.
First, I cannot believe that they kept you awake the entire time for that, not even giving you IV sedation or anything to help you with anxiety or anything that you might be facing. That blows my mind, why they didn't at least hook you up to an IV and give you at least some medicine to where you could relax a little bit.
No, I was shaking. By the time, maybe it was round 2, for sure round 3 and 4, my body was uncontrollably just like shivering, shaking, because I don't know, I was just so traumatized in so many different ways. Like the cutting, the constant needles from the injections, from the numbing stuff, just like all of it. I was just like at my wit's end. And I was so thankful when she said, we're going to stop for today. Mm-hmm. I kind of wish that they had given me that option earlier.
Right.
I kind of wish they would have said, hey, because I later learned that 2 centimeters is about what's normal for a DFSP to get it all. And they went to 5. So when they got to 2 and realized they didn't have it all, I would have liked to have been given the option to go see a head and neck surgeon to do the rest under anesthesia. Mm-hmm. Because that awake part, especially with my mom sitting there watching,
Yeah.
she's just watching them just cut away at my face. Like, that was just the worst part of it, to be awake through all of it. It was horrible. It was very different than what I expected going in for what a Mohs surgery is like. Because there were some people who I had told, like, hey, I'm having a Mohs surgery. Like, oh, I've had that. Oh, my mom had that. Oh, this. Like, everyone's like, oh, like, it's just not a big deal to anybody. But
Yeah, I mean,
it was a big deal.
If it's superficial,
Right.
if it's superficial or not that deep or in your head like that, it's not a big deal.
Right.
But they cut a massive amount out of your head.
Yeah, it's huge. It's even bigger because I've had another surgery.
So after that, you went to the head and neck surgeon the next day, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, so I went to see the head and neck surgeon, and I had my best negotiating skills on point, ready to tell them all the reasons they needed to operate on me that day.
Your closing argument?
Yeah, I was ready because I know how these doctors are. They're like, oh, we'll just wait. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, like, I got a huge hole in my head. We need to do this today. But their negotiating skills were stronger than mine. And so they convinced me that it was better to wait. And what the head and neck surgeon said was that we need to know a little bit more about what we're dealing with before we schedule your surgery, because we don't want you to have to keep having more surgeries. So we need to get a CT scan, which kind of blew my mind that hadn't been done already, but he wanted to get a CT scan done. He wanted to look at the Mohs slides and get the records from the dermatologist, and he wanted to round table my case with what they call the cancer board, because, and this was another breakdown moment for me where I started crying in his office, because doctors don't always realize the impact of what they're saying to you. Mm-hmm. But what he said to me was, they've cut all the way to your skull, and so we may have to go cut out your skull. And then he starts telling me we can replace it with a metal skull or a cadaver skull. Like, he's telling me all these things, and I'm just like, what? Like, what? You're gonna cut out my skull? So I'm like, I just start like crying, and then all of a sudden he's like, realized the impact of what he's saying, and he starts kind of backtracking, like, it's okay, we can handle it. It'll be all right. We're not going to affect your brain itself. We do these things. He kind of made it seem like all the time. I don't know how he could really do them all the time, but maybe he does. He kind of made it seem like it's easy. He actually used that word. This is easy. We can do this. This is no big deal. We got this covered. And so I started to chill a little bit at that point. And turns out, after they got all the tests and all the things, that they really didn't need to, they're not going to have to remove any of my skull. They just have to basically shave it down. he said like 20% of the thickness of my skull, shave it down to get any cancer cells that are on the outer layer of the skull to try to remove those. But no skull transplant was needed, but I
can't believe they would even say that to you without knowing for certain.
Well, that's how, doctors and lawyers, we do that too. People ask us this question, and so we just go all the way, worst case scenario, here's what things could be, and then people freak out, and then we start backtracking. So that's what happened to me, and I was really scared at that point. But because he needed to do the CT, and he needed to round table it with the cancer board to see how deep into the skull he would need to go, I thought, okay, that's a good enough reason to delay this a little while. So I left that day with no surgery scheduled at all, just prescriptions to get a CT scan and go get bandage changes every other day at the dermatologist, which sucks, by the way, and can't wash my hair. At least can't get the bandage wet. So I have to have the help of family members to wash my hair in the kitchen sink to try to not get the bandage wet. Having a standout speaker resume is so important to booking speaking engagements. If you're looking to increase your speaking engagements, but don't know where to start with your speaker resume and you'd like to see a couple of examples, we would be happy to share ours with you.
Go to missbiz.com/contact and in the subject line type speaker resumes and we'll send you your copy today.